Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I know most of my content has been home lab stuff and computers, but I've got two other hobbies, and one of them is retro gaming. So basically collecting retro video games. And the one I've been focused on the most, and it's my favorite console, and I've been collecting it forever, is NES, Nintendo Entertainment System, as you can see. And so here it is. Here's the collection. I'm not going to obviously go over every game, but I just wanted to kind of make a video about this other aspect of stuff I'm up to. Another one is like around the house DIY stuff, so I'll be posting that stuff on the channel too. But this is my first real video of sort of my retro gaming stuff. And yeah, I've been really into this for years. So I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 of these games are from my childhood, my two younger brothers and I. We didn't have one of these growing up. We got an NES from my cousin and some games they were about to donate. We happened to go over there and they they were about to give them away and we got them. And this must have been in the N64 era is when my brothers and I started getting into NES. My parents really didn't buy us a lot of video game stuff. My dad and my mom weren't really into it. But yeah, obviously I've kind of over the years gone a little overboard. So I'll link to what these shelves are. These are perfect for games, by the way, not even just NES games, and they're pretty inexpensive on Amazon. But yeah, I have this complete in-box NES satellite. I bought a loose one years ago when I was a kid with some like money I had saved up. And then in high school, I tore it apart and used the connectors to make some NES to USB computer adapters. And then so years later, I found this guy on eBay probably 10 plus years ago for a deal. So that's complete in box, works. I don't buy a ton of these. Every few months I'll try to, these days maybe twice a year I'll try to pick up a game or two. And eventually you find some that are broken or you've got dupes. And so I kind of keep them up here. So these are, I couldn't tell you which, I think this one's broken. At least one of these Tom Sawyer's is broken. But anyway, I keep them around just in case. Because you can swap out the chips. I haven't done that before, but you can take a good board and swap in a good ROM depending on the NES game. There's several variations. Another interesting thing I like to do is if you're familiar with the NES world, so you can see I have two versions of 3D World Runner, and one doesn't have these tabs, and so I'll pull that one out. When the NES first came out, the games had 5 screws on the back. They're called 5-screw games. And you can tell this is really useful for eBay postings if you're, after a certain game, they won't have those little plastic tabs on there. And so I don't necessarily hunt these down, but I will keep both versions if that's kind of what happens. So I think I bought each of these in a separate eBay lot of, 10 games. And so I'll keep both of them because, I don't know, the collector mentality or whatever. And so this one, for comparison, you can see only uses 3 screws. And this is the vast majority of NES games look like this. That was kind of what they switched to pretty early on. But yeah, if I end up with 2 games, I'll do that. I occasionally keep label variants. So let me see if I can pull one out here. So occasionally this Nintendo seal of quality label will be different, as they produce different iterations of the game over time. When I notice that, I'll keep it. It's not like a huge priority for me, but that's another reason I keep multiple games. And then another way I've stayed sort of motivated, I guess, is called I call them like mini series or series. So here you can see I have all 3 RoboCops. I kind of hunted these down specifically for a while to keep myself motivated. And then we've got all 3 Fisher-Price games. I've got all 3 Jeopardy games floating around here somewhere. And a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I kind of told myself, oh, I'm going to get every single Tengen game. So I have every single one. I have the whole set of these kind of. They're not aftermarket. This could be a whole video by itself, and I'm sure other people have made videos, but you can see I have them all here. This is every single one. I can't remember how many there are, 20 or something. But yeah, this is another thing I've been collecting over the years. I have other, platforms or consoles I've been less serious about. So I didn't have a Super Nintendo growing up, but I sort of eventually came into a fair amount of games and good ones. Nothing groundbreaking. And then this N64 collection is from my childhood. So my brothers and I got the green, whatever that version was that came with Donkey Kong 64. Here it is. This is the original one that came in that box with the green N64, which I still have over there in the entertainment center. So yeah, this is all the N64 stuff is from my childhood. But this stuff, primarily, maybe 30 of them are from my childhood. And again, I got them from a cousin. I didn't necessarily grow up with this right when it came out. My brothers and I played the crap out of this, the NES when well out of its popularity, well into the Super Nintendo N64 era. And then for a while, I got really into basically anything NES. So I was buying, well, I think this is a Game Genie from when I was a kid. So we used to have the booklet. It got all beat up. This is really old, or obviously it's old, but I've owned this for a very long time. And then I got into this. So I have three different variations of the cleaning kit. And again, this is ridiculous, of course, but and this was years ago I was doing this stuff. It's just not as affordable anymore, and it's not as fun. You used to be able to go to Goodwill. In the area I grew up in, there were thrift stores called Goodwill or Value Village, and you could go there, and my wife made a joke. We called it trawling, like you're trawling for fish. Every couple weekends I'd go trawling and see if I could find a PS2 controller or a PS1 controller, or if you were really lucky, and I found a few of these games that way, you'd find some NES games for a good deal. And you just can't do that anymore. And so this is over half the North American set. And I really have to push myself to get more. Because I have all the cheap, crappy ones. So it's getting more expensive just generally. I mean, the games that I'm missing are more rare and worth more. But you can't just kind of organically find them anymore. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of this. I've been working on this a long time, and I'm going to continue to work on it. I have no desire to have the full set because, that would cost tens of thousands of dollars for certain games. I'm sure everyone knows. But yeah, I'll show you a couple of the consoles I have and actually how I play these most of the time. So I guess we got to start with my original NES, American, US NES that I got. And like I was saying earlier, this was my cousin's. He got it new. He's older than me, obviously, and my brothers. And they were giving it away. And by total happenstance, we came over to have dinner that day at their house. It was in a box, and they gave it to us. And here it is. It's still here. It still works. I don't use it. I'll show you a bunch of other ways to play that I play NES. I kind of just keep this guy up in the cabinet. Very sentimental about this thing. It's starting to get brittle. It's starting to get cracks, and you can see it's yellowing. So you can see the door is the original color and the case isn't. So, but yeah, my brothers and I played the hell out of this. And in college, I think I replaced the ZIF connector in here so they didn't have to blow on the game, So that's the only thing that's not stock about it. But yeah, I've had this forever, 20 plus years. And then we'll get over here into the twin Famicoms. So I'm really into NES. And a few years ago, I was really into it. And so this is a Japanese collaboration between Sharp and Nintendo. And they made something called the Twin Famicom. and it takes the Famicom disk system. We'll get into that in a second. And Japanese NES games, essentially. So the Japanese NES was called the Famicom. We called it the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System. You can go Google that. There's all sorts of information out there about why that is. And so I have 3 out of 4 of these. So up here, forgot the red one, and they made 2 variants. One was called the Twin Famicom, and like just look at the artwork on this. Like that's player 1, and then that's player 2. I just love the fonts and everything they used. And there were 2 variants, so 4 colors, 2 variants. So this is a Twin Famicom, the red one, and then here's a Twin Famicom turbo version. So, and the way you can tell is you bring this out and you can adjust the turbo settings on the controller right there. And so if you'll notice, sorry about the focus issues, this guy does not have turbo settings. So like I said, there's 4 of these. And so I care way less about the games. I have 2 of those, the red Twin Famicom, this turbo Twin Famicom. If we go over here, I have the other normal Famicom. They all work, by the way. I replaced the belts in this. The drive works. He's a little beat up, but that's okay. It's hard to find these. And you'll see, of course, that just look how cool that looks. But it doesn't have the turbo stuff. So there's like an orangish, reddish turbo version that I don't have. It's like this one with the additional settings on the controller, and they're just like so expensive. I've just never done it. And obviously I can't just like waltz into a game store and buy these. You have to order them on eBay from Japan. But I've got 3 out of 4. So like I think if I got the 4th one, I probably wouldn't even buy any more NES games. I'd be satisfied. And so back to this disc system. So in Japan, they came out with floppy disk, or a form of a floppy disk, that you could play NES games on. And this thing supported both out of the box, the floppy disk, and up here, I'll show you in a second, that's just, an NES game you would plug in, but in the Japanese form factor. And so here I have the original, what was called the disc system. So again, back in Japan, the NES was called the Famicom, which was short for Family Computer. And here's a complete in-box disc system. And this is what it actually looks like. So you've got the Japanese NES on top, and then some discs going into this thing. And that's how you could play games like that. And for example, here is a disc. This is Bubble Bobble, Japanese Bubble Bobble, on a disc that you would play in this disc system. And then this is a Japanese NES game, so a Famicom game. This is Super Mario Brothers. Put that there for a second. And for comparison, this is what we had here in the US. So the artwork was different. The form factor obviously was quite different. These 2 games are equivalent. That just happens to be a Japanese version. And then it's been kind of fun to make this video because I haven't pulled all this stuff out in a while. I have a Famicom. I have a complete in-box Famicom. And again, I know this seems ridiculous that I have all this stuff. I bought all this stuff a long time ago on eBay, way before it got so desirable. And I even had more stuff. I had the modem for the Famicom. I've never had the keyboard. I'd love to have that someday. But yeah, at any rate, so this thing works. I've plugged it into this and did the whole stack and everything. It works. I obviously don't use it very often. But I'm a collector. I love NES. That's my main thing. And I definitely love the weird, obscure hardware. And for us in America, this Japanese, the disc system especially, I mean, like look at this. Like, this is incredible. To play an NES game like this is a absolute delight. Like, you plug it in. I'll have to show some video someday. So yeah, here obviously the twin Famicoms accept those discs, and it chooses between this and whatever cartridge you're putting in, obviously. So yeah, that's some of the hardware I've got. I'd I'd get rid of it all. This is all that really matters. This is the one we grew up with, my brothers and I. I have many fond memories of playing this with my younger brothers, leaving it on all night, trying to beat Super Mario Brothers 3, and then you come back in the morning and it's blinking and you're pissed off. We've beat the heck out of this thing, but it's been a good unit, and it still works. And so now I'll go and show you really briefly how I play this stuff now. All right, so this is how I play my games in 2023, and I've been playing them on this thing for years. So this is an AVS from retrousb.com. I think it came out in 2016. I might have bought it in 2016, maybe 2017. I've owned this for a long time. I think they're $209 right now, US dollars, and it's worth it. It's an FPGA unit. I don't know if they do now, but at the time they were using original, reused reset and power buttons from real NESs. Not sure how I feel about that, but probably could have been aftermarket. But yeah, basically you plug this in with a 5-volt USB and HDMI out to your monitor, and it just works. Everything works great. If the cart is clean, it's going to work. So you flip this up. It says AVS, obviously. Back in here is for the North American, NES cart that most of us are used to. So, for example, this one. And it's a really good tight connector. I'm probably going to have to use both hands off camera. 1 second. All right, that's in. I've never had to clean that connector. It always just works as long as the carts are clean. So we'll power it on. And I'm just showing you with a USB capture card and OBS right now, but you get a menu. It comes with Game Genie if you want. But anyway, you can just start the cart, and then there you go. That's playing the cart. And look how good I don't know if my video is going to come over good, but it's excellent. It's excellent. And it looks just as good on a TV. So we'll kill that. See if I can get this out with one hand. I can. And what's nice for someone like me that is also collecting Japanese stuff is I can take Japanese carts, and you'll notice there was this other connector here. Plug it in, turn it on, starts right up, press A, and there we are with the Japanese version of Super Mario Bros. So it's really nice to have both those options. It's got the 4-score built in, so games that support 4 players, like California Games or whatever, you've got all 4 you can plug in. It takes the original, obviously, NES controller. So this is one of my original NES controllers from when I was a kid. And then just to finish up, I guess I'll say this is how I actually play these things. So I love, plugging in the real carts and stuff and playing around. I do that quite often. But generally speaking, I just use these EverDrives. So I did end up getting the Japanese EverDrive from Crix. It's been great. Works just fine in the AVS. And I use that on those twin Famicoms a lot of the time. And then, of course, the American EverDrive. Again, a lot of the time I just use it in the AVS. Most of the time I'm using EverDrives. But the AVS is still great if you want to use actual games, because it supports all of them, and it's an excellent display. Excellent way to play these games. So I know this is different than my normal home lab content I've been pumping out, but this is another one of my big hobbies. It's been sort of on the back burner because it's been really hard to collect for this stuff. So it used to be, I wouldn't call it easy, but it was more exciting. So you could go and find a good deal. Like I remember getting this thing in college 12, 13 years ago, and you could find Mario Brothers for $1 in a bin at like a record store, at least where I grew up. And now I don't even want to know what this game is on eBay. It's my favorite game ever, by the way. So I understand like where people are coming from. It's an excellent game, but the problem is they made a lot of these. They made millions of these, and it's just not worth 20 or 30 bucks because there were so many. Like I remember buying the. I don't think I bought this one for $1, but you used to be able to buy these. Sometimes they would throw this in for free just because they were trying to get rid of them at these like old stores. And so I don't know. I love the NES. I love collecting for it. I'm a hardware guy, so that's why I like the network rack and the servers and everything. I love getting the hardware. The older I get, the less I'm into actually playing the video games, unfortunately. So I used to be, I could sit there forever and play any video game, and the older I get, it's more about having the hardware and collecting that and tinkering with it. And so I showed you most of what I have for the when it comes to the NES, including the Japanese stuff. I've got a couple more things I could show, but really you guys saw it all. So yeah, if you're interested in more of these videos about retro video gaming and especially hardware, I've got lots of hardware for more than just the NES, tons of other systems. Let me know. I'm more than happy to post more videos about that. And I really appreciate you watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.